If you've ever peed a little when you laughed, or if sex has started to feel more painful than pleasurable, you might be dealing with pelvic floor dysfunction, even if no one's ever told you that. Pelvic floor issues are way more common than you think, especially for women over 40. So why aren't we talking about them? Well, today we are. Welcome to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast brought to you by Thinlicious. I'm your host, Ruth Sukup, and here we'll talk about everything from the science of weight loss to practical tips for making your health a priority in the midst of a busy life. It's a little bit nerdy, a little bit funny, and a little bit revolutionary. So buckle up, friend, because it's about to get real. Hey there, and welcome back to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ruth Sukup, and I am the founder of Thinlicious and the creator of the Thin Adapted System. And today, we're going to be chatting with Christina Walsh, a licensed physical therapist and the co-founder of Tighten Your Tinkler, where she specializes in holistic pelvic floor health for women, especially those of us over 40. Christina's work is all about non-invasive practical solutions to problems like leaks, prolapse, pelvic pain, and all the awkward stuff that no one wants to talk about, but so many of us are secretly dealing with. And I've got to say, this conversation was so eye-opening. Whether you've had kids or not, whether you're in perimenopause or postmenopause, this is info every woman needs to hear. So let's get right into it. Christina, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to talk to you about this crazy topic.
Thank you so much, Ruth. It is a cause that's near and dear to both me and my partner's hearts because it came from a very personal place that led us to where we are now, as we will dive into more together.
Well, tell us all about it. So I always start with the same question, which is, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and how you got to be doing what you are now. So that's the perfect lead-in.
Totally. I think it's a circuitous route, but when you kind of sit back and relinquish control and just follow your heart and where you can feel yourself being called, the result is always the right one. And that's easier said than done. But when I reflect back on things, I really think the seeds were planted way back in my childhood. I'm the oldest of 4 kids and always just kind of have been a natural caregiver. I helped raise my siblings, right? A big family. And I watched my mom deal with a lot of issues that she had with her body from having kids. And she was a warrior, right? Like all of us moms, it's not that she complained all the time, but constant workarounds. Like her back was tight, constantly having to stop on road trips. We would tease her. Now in hindsight, I'm like, I can't believe we teased her about this. I didn't know, she was always the one who had to go to the potty. It was like, I think I wanted to help her. I was helping my siblings. I didn't know how I was a kid, but I think my interest in helping people heal really started from those observations as a child. And I ended up going to physical therapy school because at the time it felt like the right path, really get to know your patients, get to offer comprehensive treatments. And I got out into the field and it wasn't what I expected. I felt like more of a circus juggler, just doing paperwork for insurance companies and delegating care to less trained professionals. The system works for a lot of things, but it wasn't where I wanted to be. And I had a terrible whiplash injury originally. So, right, you're like, how does this get to pelvic health, right? Trust me, we're headed there. I had a terrible whiplash injury. And so I was pursuing my own healing and, the system didn't have what I wanted. You call it an occupational hazard. Like when you work with injured people all the time, where it's headed if you don't get better without the more invasive care. I didn't want to be a surgical candidate at 45. So I started looking for other options because the Western medical system didn't have the means to healing that I wanted personally. And so I found a specialized style of body work called craniosacral therapy. And I was like, oh my God, sparks flew. It was like, this is what I've been looking for. I dropped everything, barely finished paying back my student loans, right? And I was like, all right, husband, I'm going to go study this now.
I'm sure you love that.
Totally supportive. I mean, I work with another self-employed partner. So, he was like, girl, you got to follow your passions. I'm fully on board. So that was my first foray outside of working in the medical system, and I loved it. I really got to connect deeply with patients. And then, sure enough, a one Miss Jen Lormond ended up on my treatment table in this bodywork practice, and she was recovering from a traumatic birth, had a very large DR, that diastasis, separation of the abdominals, and had a really rough first, second, and third birth, and forceps and massive tearing, and just a lot of injury. And she had landed on my table, and we connected like soulmates. It was just phenomenally guided. And she said, I need you to come practice out of my personal training gym. She was already taking care of other moms and women. And I was like, oh, this is where I always wanted to be. Like, oh my gosh, this is it. And so once again, I was like, this is the thing I've been hoping for and looking for. Here we go. Oh yeah, I've found it, you know? So I went to practice out of her gym, and we're two separate businesses. Then I had my first baby. Okay. And so I felt like I had the advantage of working with all these women with all these injuries and going, okay, how can I minimize my risk of injury in this birth? I chose to have a baby with a doula and a midwife. You know, outside, I was like, I'm going to minimize all this risk. But guess what? We don't get to control everything in childbirth.
No.
So here comes the pelvic health piece. So I ended up pushing for 2.5 hours with my first delivery because she was sunny side up, that OP, they call it. And
And to me too.
yeah, right. Okay. Well, then you
Mm-hmm.
know. And
Yep.
that what I didn't even know then is that that is a statistical risk factor for developing prolapse, which is when the organs in your pelvis kind of lose their place over time.
Interesting.
It's kind of like pelvic floor dysfunction on steroids, you could say. It's a progression of that. And so I didn't even know then that that was a risk factor, probably for the best. But it's validating when you learn that later. So I did have, despite having, you know, no medical intervention on this birth, I still ended up with issues I needed to heal from. And then Jen was still healing from her traumatic births. And we were both, we were trying Kegels. We were trying all the things that were recommended, and we weren't trying the things we weren't interested in. She was referred for surgery, major pelvic reconstructive surgery at 36 years old.
Gosh.
And she was like, absolutely not. Now, I have nothing to lose and everything to gain as an exercise physiologist. And then I'm a physical therapist. We were like, we have to find a better way. The surgeon even looked her straight in the eyes and was like, I hate doing this on women so young because it's just going to have to be redone in 10 years. And so at that point, we just kind of joined forces in absolute conviction that we had to find a different option to address these issues really for ourselves first, right? And so we found another approach through a continuing education course and started testing it on ourselves and then on the women in our shared clinic space. And the results were phenomenal. And we undertook the insane task of doing a 3-year university research study on this protocol because we are total science nerds. And we were like, we need data. Like, if we're going to really help women, like, we need more than testimonials. We need to get this out there into the world so everyone can have access to it. And we have a published, you know, peer-reviewed, published medical research study on the protocol. We thought that, and then we thought that was going to be it. We're like, oh, great. We got this thing out there into the world. Like, woohoo, check all the
nobody
boxes.
cared.
And then, right. Okay. How did you know? It's like you knew. So nobody cared. And then even worse, we got pushback. We got pushback from the doctors. We tried to present the research to like urologists and, you know, what's in it for them, right? If it's a non-invasive, holistic way to heal that women can do from home, why would they be interested? And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but, you know, in hindsight, we have this clarity. Well, my partner, Jen, is a little bit more. But, you know, in hindsight, it's also clear. And so it was the women in our research who kept coming back to us going, please make videos of this. Like, I need to send this to every woman I know, and they don't all live here. And that's when we heard the call to do what they were asking. We created an online program, and 6 years in, we are shouting it from the rooftops in every way we can to try to gain access for more women in the way that we can.
I love that. I mean, it's so like, I hate that our system is the way that it is. And I talk about that all the time, right? Medical industry, the food industry, they're all conspiring against us. Pharmaceutical companies, they're all conspiring against us.
Yes.
But I am so grateful that we live in a time now where we do have the opportunity online to get that message out there in alternative ways through podcasts, through YouTube, through websites. And that's, I feel like that's kind of what I've done with food too, is because nobody was talking about this stuff, and they're not going to tell you because there's no money in it for them. So
Yeah, there's nothing in it for the pharmaceutical industry to teach about metabolic flexibility, is there?
no, no, there really is not.
Yep.
No,
And so
they
here
are
we
not
are.
excited about that. So,
And I
and
always
and you
just,
will get the pushback, and it is almost
yeah,
freaky when you
yes,
realize like the
yes.
power, because you go your whole life and you're not really thinking about it, and of course you want to trust your doctors and trust these people
Mhm.
who are supposed to be have our best interest at heart, and then you start to dig, and that's why I think I have become a conspiracy theorist because I realize so many people do not have
I
our best
know.
interest at heart,
I know.
and it pisses me off,
Yeah,
frankly.
and it should. And that is why we've made it our life's work to get this out
Love
there,
that.
because thank goodness there are other options now. And I always just trust that, the women I'm speaking to today through your platform are going to be the ones who need to hear this are going to hear it. And that's how we show up every day, and we are always cheering. I love your cheering for you energy, because that's exactly what Jen and I bring every single day to our clients and our, members and anyone who lands in our inbox or comments under our YouTube videos, because it's phenomenal when you help a woman who's been dealing with these incredibly personal issues to feel seen for the first time. I mean, I always get emotional when I talk about this. One of our, our highest viewed teachings on YouTube is our in-depth bladder prolapse teaching, and 300 something thousand views and hundreds of comments. And it's a very public platform, right? Women are coming out and posting under these videos like, I am in tears right now. I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only one. I can't believe this. Why did my dog? Because not surprisingly, guess what? The stories we hear are the ones where women got up the courage to speak to their provider. And that takes a lot just to begin with when the issues are this personal. They got up the courage to speak to their provider, and they were shamed. They were dismissed. They were, of course, gaslit. They were lied to. And sometimes the lying to isn't intentional. It's because the physician only knows what they know, and they were trained in a particular system. And so they don't know what they don't know. And
Yeah.
so I'm not throwing other providers under the bus, because I do believe we all get into these professions for the right reasons. I'm going to continue to believe that, but they don't know what they don't know. And so it's phenomenal when you speak to women as much as we do personally about this stuff, how emotional it becomes. And because when we felt that ourselves too, you don't even realize what a weight you're carrying around, when you're living feeling broken at your center, and until you start to take that off, and then you feel like what you always talk about. I mean, it's kind of an analogy with the metabolic freedom. I listened to your recent
It is.
episode about that, and it was like, oh, it is a sense of freedom when you start to relieve that weight and get to the root of all
Yeah.
of it and start to feel like yourself again. And you're very motivated to keep doing the work. Once you start to feel those changes, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, wait, it can be like this. Like,
Yes.
and you feel lighter, and you start to heal from the center out. And it is so powerful.
I love that. It is, and it's true. There's so many analogies to that it's like your health is so central. And so if there's
Yes.
any piece that is not good or feeling good or that you're constantly aware of and just having to accommodate in your life,
Yes.
whether it's being overweight or dealing with pelvic floor issues or any other sort of medical condition, like it becomes like you don't even realize, like then it becomes
Yes.
your normal, and you don't realize how much you're eating and
Yes.
not eating and how much it is impacting your life. So let's back up though a minute and just talk about like, what is your pelvic floor? How is it defined? Because I don't think I even. If I've learned anything from my own health journey, it's that real transformation isn't about finding one magic diet plan. It's about finding the best food to nourish our bodies every day. And that's why I am so excited about Seven Sons Farms. Just like me, their family story started with a mom's health struggle, and it completely transformed the way they raise food. Today, they're delivering pasture-raised meats and eggs straight from their farm to families across the country, which makes it easier and more convenient than ever to eat the healthiest, highest quality meat in the country. And here's the best part. If you want to try it for yourself, Seven Sons is giving my community an exclusive $50 off your first box. Just use the code TL50 at checkout. You'll find the link in the show notes. No.
Totally. Well, and,
Exactly
and
what
you're,
that means.
this is very common, and it doesn't have to be scary or complicated. It's simply the sling of muscles at the bottom of our body that holds everything in from below. I mean,
Okay.
it's a set of multiple muscles that work together. And I won't take credit for this. Someone else summarized it beautifully and said, "Oh, it's responsible for peeing, pooping, and penetration." I was like, why,
Oh.
yes, those exactly the domains of the pelvic floor muscles. And so it's important to
Okay.
know that there is no bone holding all your organs in from below. It's all
Oh,
soft tissue. And the soft tissue is what keeps each organ, bladder, uterus, and rectum. It is only soft tissue compartments that keep those organs in their proper homes as well. So, when we have traumatic birth, when we have, just normal stretching to carry full-term births,
hmm.
especially as we have babies later in life, when we have certain factors in our delivery or our healing that are unavoidable, that, forever change that tissue, it's not shocking that we end up with issues of function down there. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
If it's so, what is your pubic bone then? Or that doesn't count?
No, it does. So I'm so glad you said, okay, so the pelvic floor, because our muscles have to attach to bones, right? That's their
Hmm.
anchor points. So the pubic bone in the front of the pelvis, where the pelvis comes together in the front, that hard spot in the front, is the
Hmm.
front anchor point for the pelvic floor muscles. Then
Okay.
they share attachments with some of the deep hip rotators kind of out into the sides. And then at the back of the bowl, they attach to your tailbone.
Okay.
So, I mean, I can go on a rant right now, just the fact that we had, medical experts we try to present our research to, we tracked data on back and hip issues because the pelvic floor connects directly to the tailbone, right? So the
Hmm.
idea that it could impact your back and hip is, and shares attachments with your hip rotators. So the idea that back and hip issues are a part of this dysfunction is not remotely a stretch when
Yeah.
you look at the visuals. And yet we had pushback from quote unquote experts in, the pelvic and women's health community in the Western medical system who said there is no data that back and hip issues are connected to the pelvic floor dysfunction. And I was just like, that, I think that was the moment where Jen and I were like, never mind this path. Like, it, we're just left dumbfounded and speechless because also if you
Yeah.
felt it in your body, that's the most absurd claim ever because back and hip tightness and pain go hand in hand with
Yeah.
pelvic floor dysfunction and issues that are we generally more stereotypically think of as pelvic floor issues, but all the core, the outer hip muscles, all the deep abdominals and the pelvic floor are all meant to work together synchronously. Nothing functions in isolation in our body. That's just bonkers. Like,
Hmm.
anybody knows that. It's not a wonder the women who come to us seeking help are going, none of this, what I was being told, made any sense to me. Like they intuitively know that doesn't make sense. And so they're
Yeah.
looking for other options. And finally, someone's connecting the dots and validating, like, okay, yes, this is all a part of the same dysfunction. But the good news there is that then it can be remedied by taking the same set of steps. It's going to improve all of that all at once.
I love that. So let's talk about like what are some of the symptoms then, or things that you're dealing with when it comes to pelvic floor dysfunction? What does that look
Totally.
like? What does that feel like how would somebody know, like, as you're talking, oh yeah, this is me?
Yeah, and one of the most important qualifiers here to understand is that this picture looks a little different for every single woman. No tissue history or story is going to be the same for every woman. And so your particular set of these issues is not going to be the same as someone else's. I'm going to list a comprehensive array of what this can be, but more than likely, you're not going to check every box. Thank God.
Hmm.
But if you're checking two or more of these boxes, you're falling into this category. So it's everything from the things we most commonly think of as your pee leaks, whether that's the laughing, coughing, sneezing, jumping kind, or the gotta go now, can't make it in time leaks. That's,
Yes.
also peeing more than 10
The no
times a day.
trampoline since I had
Yeah.
babies one.
No, exactly. Exactly. Well, and there are, for many women, that's not the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's
Yeah.
when, you sneeze and you're walking on the beach in a swimsuit and you can't have a pad on and the pee runs down your leg and you're standing next to your toddler and your husband going, or your 14-year-old and your husband going, okay, I think I need to do something about this now. Maybe
Mhm.
losing the trampoline wasn't really a problem,
Yeah.
but it's when it gets past that it starts to really impact your daily life and it becomes a non-negotiable to seek help at some point. But yes, that is absolutely one of the things. Peeing more than 10 times a day is not quote unquote normal, no matter how much water you drink. Right? And
Really?
there's no such thing as a small bladder. That is like an old wives' tale. because we didn't know any
Okay.
better,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, I'm starting
Yeah.
to get nervous.
Uh-huh. So have you checked 2 boxes? And we're just getting started.
I know,
Any
2 out of 2.
and any issues with sex, whether that's, it should never be painful, and nuances of pain with sex. So a lot of women say, no, it doesn't hurt during the act. So, well, are you swollen and puffy and sore afterwards down there? Because that's part of this. Or do you feel aching or cramping higher up in the abdomen? Maybe not, maybe it's not pain on insertion. Maybe it's aching or cramping up higher in the abdomen. All of this is pelvic floor dysfunction as it relates to your intimate life with your partner. It can present all those different ways. It can be back and hip tightness, like we just talked about. It's like women who are like, as women, as moms, we often like to deny pain. We're like, we used to ask women, does your back hurt? And they would always say, oh, no, I don't have any back pain. I do feel like I have to constantly stretch my back. And it does wake me up at night. Every time I try to change positions, my hip wakes me up. But they won't say they're in pain, right? Because we're warriors. But
Yeah.
all of that is part of this. If you're a woman who's got the chronically tight hip flexors and you're like, I can't get my abs to turn back on, my hip flexors are doing all the work all the time, and chronically tight front of the hips, all of that is part of this. So also downward pressure and heaviness. I have had this personally, and it is absolutely the most distracting, awful feeling to walk around with. It's like you're at the end stage of a pregnancy, but you're not pregnant anymore. That heaviness, that pressure, like, oh my God, is something trying to fall out down there? It is the most disconcerting, awful feeling. And then some women describe a bulge. That's a classic prolapse symptom. Like if you feel a bulge down there, some women describe it as, I almost feel like I have a tampon inserted in there, like wrong, but I don't have anything in. So these are all, again, I pray to God nobody's checking all these boxes.
Yeah.
Incomplete emptying of the bladder. It's struggling to initiate the stream of urine. All these nuances are different types of ways you can be recognizing that you might be dealing with these issues. And if you're like, okay, maybe this is me, I'm still not sure, take our free 5-minute quiz. What we did is assimilate all the research validated questionnaires that we use to track women's progress in our research, and we put them as an online quiz. It's 5 minutes, and you will be shocked how eye-opening it is. And it's going to validate, I knew all this stuff was connected. I knew this wasn't normal. And it's going to give you a score and report that is data-backed. We didn't make up these ranges. It is all based on our research to tell you with certainty, based on your personal case, am I a good candidate for, conservative treatment? If you are, awesome. We give you some resources. We give you more education right there. If you have progressed to the point where you're no longer a good candidate for non-invasive, non-surgical care, we also tell you that honestly, and we refer you to resources we do recommend when it has gotten to that point. So if you're wondering any of that, that's what the quiz is for. So obviously you'll have the link. That's a perfect starting point. If you're going, wait, is this me?
Yeah, for sure. And we will put the link to that quiz in the show notes. But I
Yeah.
took it, and it was interesting and eye-opening. And I think I got a 29. So I was still in green, but barely in green.
Yeah, which is a great time. We always say that's the other piece is that these issues are progressive, and no one's being honest or straightforward or upfront with women about that stuff either. And we are not fearmongers. We're cheerleaders, and we are here to support every woman on the path that's right for them. But no one's telling what we don't want for you is to be one of the women under our YouTube videos going, oh my God, I wish someone would have told me this 10 years ago, because at some point it does become too late to reasonably expect that, non-invasive care is going to help. So why not take action before it gets to that point?
Yeah.
And the statistics are alarming. 20 to 25% of women over the age of 40 have at least early stage prolapse, which is, again, the falling of those organs out of their usual place. 1 in 3 women total will develop clinically significant prolapse in the lifespan, and that goes up to 1 in 2 for women who have given birth. So, and the prevalence doubles every 10 years after menopause. And so this, maybe this is your permission to honor yourself with the care you deserve before it gets to that point where you're taking that quiz and we're going, you really need to go see a surgeon now. Because
so let's talk about that. Like, what does the care look like for something like this?
it can be, our practice is always taking a holistic approach. we'll talk about tons of action steps you can start with. Of course, we have our whole program, which is that research validated protocol, and women can join and have lifetime access, including the program, all the improvements, and the support community, which we are active in every month, walking women through. It's incredible because we get to walk with women through multiple pregnancies sometimes, through changes into perimenopause and that evolution of what their body's asking for. But before you even get to a protocol or a program or working with a provider, maybe you need to see somebody in person. Maybe you need a pelvic floor therapist. You know yourself, so you need therapeutic exercise to strengthen those muscles. There are a lot of options now. Our approach is non-invasive, fully non-invasive, which is fairly valuable to lots of women. And it's done from home, which is great. So women who don't have access to an in-person provider, we're an excellent option for. However, you can start right from home, making some positive changes to take care of yourself in this area immediately. And some of this is going to sound maybe oversimplified, but let's go back to the pelvic floor is fully responsible for the functions of peeing, pooping, and penetration. So how can we take care of those functions from home now, starting today? All right, let's optimize our whole toileting situation first. How many times a day are we peeing and pooping? If every time we're doing those things, we're adding pressure and strain to our pelvic floor, imagine how much healing could occur if we just remove that problematic practice. Maybe you need to start using a squatty potty, a toileting stool. So you're putting your entire hip pelvic complex into an ergonomic position for emptying. You need to make sure you're not pushing your pee out and limiting straining for poop as much as possible, which that squatty potty helps with. You want to get, if you think anthropologically, in many countries still now, no Western toilets, we're in a deep squat to empty bowel and bladders. And that actually is the more passive way to allow that to happen, where you're going to need to strain less. So you want to make sure, limit that pushing as much as possible.
Yeah.
That includes both peeing and pooping. So, this is some of the stuff you talk about so much. Anyway, optimizing your fiber and hydration, that stool consistency is incredibly important. If every time you're pooping, you're having to push, strain, or it's constant diarrhea, that is hurting, it is damaging slowly over time the pelvic floor on repeat. And so we want to optimize that toileting posture and add electrolytes to your water. If you're like, gosh, I've already drank so much water, I can't drink anymore, my hydration's fine. Add some electrolytes. That actually helps your body make better use of the water you're already drinking. So the tissues will hydrate more effectively just from that simple change. So some of these things are the perfect place to start. Also, don't wear garments that compress your middle. If we're,
really?
Yeah. And for women who have felt this,
no more Spanx.
I love her so much. We follow her on Instagram. I think she's a phenomenal powerhouse of a woman and business owner. But no, we can't support Spanx because, any woman dealing with any pelvic floor issues, it is not a gift to your body. And that could even include your favorite Lulu pants. If it leaves, and it depends on the woman, it depends on your body, where you are with all this. But if you have felt this, you're going to feel very validated when you hear this. If your jeans, your workout pants, your underwear leave a mark at your waist by the end of the day, they're too tight and they're causing downward pressure. So imagine we're squeezing in the middle. Yeah. Think of a tube of toothpaste. Grab your hands and squeeze it real tight for where's the pressure going? It's going.
That's so interesting though, because I would think that would be the opposite, right? You're holding everything in, but that's not good.
Well, not if you're dealing with impaired pelvic floor strength or function or prolapse, because then your least favorite friend is pressure, because it's all about a pressure imbalance in the end. And adding strength, that up and in strength, functional strength, is going to change that course for you, along with modifying the toileting position, staying hydrated, shying away from those compressive garments, shying away from heels, because that tips your whole pelvis forward and changes the angle of pull of all those muscles and compresses your low back. All these little choices that you make every day really do add up and can start to move the needle in the right direction. And let's not forget about, this is a hot topic lately, and it's very relevant here too, is the impact of your nervous system. Because It touches everything, including your bladder.
Yes.
So if you are peeing more than 10 times a day or having those urgency leaks or near leaks, that is a combination of nervous system overactivation of the bladder combined with weakness in the muscle. So if those are your issues, you want to start by adding in a calming centering practice. And if you're dealing with pressure, heaviness, back or hip issues, also, we have a wonderful freebie, our at-home decompression technique that takes no special equipment, costs you nothing. And for all my go-getters, we have a lot of go-getter women who work with us.
Yeah.
And you're going to take 10 minutes and laying in this position, and you're going to feel the pressure come off your back and hips and your pelvis, and you're going to be down regulating your nervous system all at once. So it's rest multitasking. It's very productive.
Which you have to tell people.
Yes.
Busy women that you're being productive while you're doing this. It's a three for one relaxation.
So yeah, but all of these choices, like if you just make these little shifts every day with the toileting situation, with, choosing our clothes and then pouring into your nervous system with gentleness and encouraging that healing state of your entire body, you can start to move the needle before you eat. And I would recommend starting with all of that even before you add therapeutic functional strengthening, because by the time then you add that, you're going to be set up for success and get even faster results.
So how do hemorrhoids fit into this?
This is a great question. They are a pressure issue, and it can be really tricky because one of the types of prolapse is rectal prolapse. And that is something, especially with a sunny side up delivery, you're more at risk for dealing with that because the pressure of the birth goes more to the back of the bowl. If we think of the pelvic floor as the bowl of muscles, the pressure goes more to the back of the bowl. And so many women with sunny side up deliveries, me included, end up with more of those symptoms towards the back of the bowl and less of the urinary and bladder stuff, just because of the pressure of the childbirth. Sometimes that looks like hemorrhoids, but sometimes that looks like rectal prolapse, and differentiating and discerning between the two can be hard. What I can tell you, though, is that hemorrhoids are also a pressure issue. So what is going to be a positive thing to do, no matter whether it's hemorrhoids or rectal prolapse, is going to be taking all those steps we already talked about to minimize and rebalance the pressure of that entire area. Those are all going to be the correct steps to take, no matter which one it is.
Well, sign me up, baby.
I know. That is not something you want to wish on anyone.
No, it's not. And it's ever since my second pregnancy, and that was my one who was sending. My first one was a little bit traumatic. I had a really bad tear. And then my second one, I was like, I'm not doing that again. Same thing, did a home birth, doula, midwife, and then same thing. I had to push for, I think 2.5 hours because she was flipped. And then she finally flipped at the end.
Girl, so both, I don't know why my body did this, but I try to always think back and go, so much, as you always talk about too, so much of healing all this is mindset. We have to remove the idea. We want to allow ourselves to grieve and mourn what was really hard, those births that you didn't plan on going the way that they did, all that you have suffered and dealt with since then. And that means you, that means me, that means anyone listening right now. Give yourself the permission to mourn, and then also remember all that your body has done and is still doing for you. And the fact that your body is brilliantly created to heal. So often it can be as simple as setting the table for your body to do what it's been trying to do the whole time anyway. This is the same concept of metabolic flexibility. We're just we're setting the scene to let the body and its natural healing processes take over. And this is where women who come and enjoy our holistic approach already have that mindset. They already know, why are these things being offered to me that are so isolated? Just like a Kegel, I'm just going to squeeze and relax this muscle. That doesn't even make sense. That's not how I strengthen any other muscle. Why would this work? Or they've tried that and it didn't work. And they're looking for other options. They want to they're ready to give their body that gentle nudge by just setting the scene for healing. And I really connected. It might seem like a stretch, but I really heard so much similarity in your metabolic flexibility episode because you talk so much about you're not trying to force anything on or to your body. It's really about removing the things that are harming it and setting the table for your body to be successful
Yeah.
We believe and know that
I
it
think
can.
that is what I come back to again and again. And it's so cool because on this podcast, obviously I get to talk to amazing people like you and different experts in all different areas. And it always comes back to that for me, is that it's all connected.
Yeah.
And a lot of the same things are going to heal you in all these different areas. And
Yeah.
it
It's
just
about
really
setting it,
amazing.
it's creating an upward spiral instead of the opposite, right?
Yes.
And it's amazing when you, gosh, it really is, when you start to feel that positive change occur, you're so much more motivated to keep going. And
So true. Yeah.
and that's the thing, when you no longer, you intuitively feel like I'm not forcing something anymore. I'm opening a door for my body to do what it already wanted to do anyway. And we intuitive, especially as women, we're gifted in phenomenal intuition and awareness of our bodies. We have to procreate and to bear children. But
Yes.
it can feel like a burden sometimes when it feels like nothing's working right. But when
Yes.
you start to remove the things that are causing the problems and you start to set the table for the body to take over and do what it's meant to do, the upward spiral starts and it just gets better from there.
And I think that trusting your intuition is so key. And especially like going back to the conspiracy theory and the medical industry and everything. But we've gone like that is, I think, the most sinister thing. If it really comes down to anything, I think that's the most sinister thing of our modern medicine, is how it has taken us away from our intuition and like, wait, this doesn't seem right. Like
Yeah.
I know how I feel, and I don't, and we're taught, nope, you have to believe this, you should just take this drug, you should just do this thing. And so coming back to that, and once you start doing it in one area of your life, you'll find that all of a sudden the floodgates open and you do it in every area of your life.
Yep.
Which is a good thing,
Yeah.
You're right. That's exactly the upward spiral. So I feel like we could talk about this all day, but we are out of time. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows where they can find you, how they can find your program. Tell us all the things. And of course, we will link to all of it in the show notes.
Absolutely, girl. We're in all the places. Tightenyourtinkler.com, at tighten.your.tinkler on Instagram, and our YouTube channel is one of our most popular places where women find us. It's just Tighten Your Tinkler on YouTube. And I think that's because, we always say that women are searching for a lot of the things you might be even scared to Google on there. And inevitably, we've got like a deep dive teaching on all these different nuances where you can feel safe and seen and heard in the privacy of your own home, and realize once and for all you are not alone and that there is hope for healing. And so find us in any of those places. We're in our inbox. There's no bots involved. We are taking care of women in all those places every day, and it is such an honor. Follow us, reach out to us, take that quiz if you're in doubt of where to start. That's the best place. Begin the techniques we talked about already today, and you will start to move the needle in the right direction.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Christina. This was so informative, and I just
Thank
appreciate you and
you.
what you're doing, and it's amazing. So thank
Same
you
to
so
you,
much.
Ruth. Thank you.
All right, guys, that about does it for this episode. Remember that you'll find the link to Christina's website, Tighten Your Tinkler, as well as all the resources we talked about today in the show notes. So be sure to check that out. And if you know someone else who might be struggling with pelvic floor issues or who just needs to hear this conversation, please be sure to send it their way. Then be sure to subscribe to the podcast to be notified of future episodes, and I'll see you back here for another new episode very soon.